Richard's on it moving in.
Is it?
Because that bond is specifically for the work.
It's for that
for that
project.
For that
So the
project.
spill prevention plan is for that project and the bond is for that project. Yeah. Yep. Henry said he's only doing 28 miles per hour. Texting while
Good,
driving.
we have a quorum.
Hey, federally late.
Hey, Richard.
Aye.
$4:33.
32,
4:33. Now it's 4:34.
4:34.
Should I adjust that clock so it's correct?
I could,
It doesn't matter. My clock is right.
I know, but then they'll always be 1 minute off your time.
It's okay.
well, should I call it to order? And, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
At 4:34, I'd call the Tamworth Select Board meeting to order on March 25th. And I move to go into non-public session under RSA 91-A, 32A. Roll call vote.
You said yes?
There, yes.
Prentice, yes.
We're now in non-public at 4:35. I'll call it back into session.
Yep. We have a meeting on the 8th,
Yep.
which is before the 15th. Yep.
Always.
So we don't have to make a decision tonight on anything.
Are you talking about PA 60?
Yep.
That deadline is March 31st.
So to decide, we'd have to have a special meeting, unless we decide tonight. Or we don't,
Yeah, so we're just, everything gets honored as is.
5 o'clock.
I move to come out of
if we did that.
non-public
that's
session
conditional
at 5 o'clock.
That we're exploring changing for next year.
I have a second.
Second.
Yeah, but on our second machine.
I know, our
Yeah.
second machine, the roll call vote,
You said yes?
there, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
We are now in public session at 5:01. The only additions to the agenda that I'm aware of is a few items in the signature file. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And that we are revisiting
Oh,
another
yeah,
aspect of the
right, White Lakes
White Lake Wood
Woods.
project.
The next thing we usually do is ask for public input before we get into the business at hand. And I'd just like to remind everybody that the select board meeting is our only chance to talk among ourselves, to make decisions that we have to make. And we have designated times for public input. And so if you'd respect that, and if you have something really urgent to say during the meeting, please raise your hand and address it to me, and then we'll take questions. But mostly we will discuss things among ourselves and have public input at the beginning and the end of the meeting. So is there anything you need to really get into before we...
When did you want me to speak? I was supposed to be on the agenda for today. I sent y'all something, so whenever you want me to speak, I will.
Could you remind me your name? I'm sorry.
Nancy Sheridan.
I forgot about that. Yeah, we got an email from Nancy a week or two ago.
Oh, I don't know that I was on that email.
I would say let's do it right up front.
Yeah,
Okay,
right now.
all right. So did you all get the email I sent you and the cover sheet? I sent one to everybody. So you all should have gotten it.
I don't think I was on that.
I went on the website and I could only do like so many, and then I had to wait an hour or so before I could do more.
Oh, that's weird.
You know,
So that was
Nancy,
a
I
couple weeks
got
ago.
an email from you asking how to get on the agenda because you wanted a
Right.
resolution, but I didn't get a follow-up email.
Oh, well, I went on the town website and put the email.
Well, we haven't seen it yet, so just
All right.
dive right in.
All right, so this is something that's been done in different towns across the state. And what's going on is the new presidential administration is attempting to freeze grants. And there are grants that y'all had put in the budget for this year. And what I saw was fire department grants, radio equipment, $482,471. Police Department grants for speed equipment, 11,000 plus. Grant for HAZ mitigation, 7,500. And the library roof solar, but no amount was listed in the town budget, so I didn't include that. And what this resolution asks is that the select board adopts this resolution objecting to the freeze of federal grant programs to states and municipalities and to agencies and organizations that support Tamworth residents as presented, at this meeting. So be it further moved that the Tamworth Select Board shall seek additional support for this resolution from other municipalities, mayors or what have you in the state, in an attempt to build as broad a coalition as possible prior to forwarding the resolution to our representatives in Congress and the Senate. So basically what this is asking that, is saying to our representatives that y'all want to not add more of a tax burden to the people of Tamworth for grants that were already approved and appropriated by Congress, and that you would like Congress to stand by that. And I'm really sorry that you didn't get the resolution, because it's a lot longer, but I want to respect your time.
We should get a copy of it.
I can give you my copy with the cover letter.
Yeah, then Emily
Well-
can,
Yeah.
and then Emily can give it to us.
Okay.
Would you imagine coalition building entails?
So I
Like,
do
what are you
know
asking us
that,
to do besides sign this?
so Lebanon, their select board did it, and I have lost track of how many other towns have passed this resolution. Some did it at their March meeting, but I couldn't get on your agenda before that. And so what it is can we all just build a coalition with other select boards and let Pappas, Goodlander, Hassan, and Shaheen know that you all want the federal government to respect the money that was raised and appropriated that's supposed to be followed through with. So,
Emily, is that the kind of thing you've seen or we could use the New Hampshire Municipal Association
I can
forum
look into
for?
it, I have not seen it come across yet, but I also get a ton of information
I bet
from
you
them,
do.
so it's hard to digest it all.
yeah,
And that's one way that we communicate with other municipal governments around the state.
okay.
So that's one venue that is one easy way to let a lot of municipalities know with not a lot of time.
I can also post to, I'm part of like a listserv for all the other town managers, so I can ask, how they've gone about this.
Right,
Mhm.
okay, great. And if you want any more information from me, I will go back to the source where I got it from in Lebanon. But, and then
Did it
that,
sort of start there, do you know?
I think it did start there, yeah. And it's just a group of concerned citizens who were worried about, what was raised and appropriated and wanting that to be followed through with. And then they sent their letters to our elected representatives in Washington. But like I said, I couldn't get in before our annual meeting, so.
So our next meeting is the 8th. That should give us time to review things for Emily to do some research, and we can bring it up again during public comment.
Yeah, we
at the
can put it on the
beginning.
agenda for next.
Put it on the agenda.
So I should come on the 8th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great, I'd be
and
happy
then
to
we'll
do
have
that.
time to digest.
All
Sorry,
right.
we didn't.
Sorry if the glitch.
And I think the glitch might be, if you were submitting emails through the website.
Yeah.
We recently switched over from .org to .gov, so I'll check with our website, but it could just be that miscommunication, but admin@tamworthnh.gov.
Yeah, I
can
sent
get it
them
to
like 3 weeks ago because I wanted you all to have time,
Yeah.
because I know that you're all busy, so.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
sorry,
you.
I'm sorry we missed it, that's a
Yeah.
bummer. Alright.
But
Thank
we'll
you
put it
for
on the
your
agenda
effort.
for the 8th.
On the 8th?
Yeah.
All right, I'd love to come back then, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go to new business. Department head update with Rick Murrow.
Again,
Hi.
just gonna pick up where we left off earlier. All the buildings fared well over the winter. minor issues that were addressed, but everything's up and running. Just to give you guys a heads up, we had talked briefly about changes to building or projects coming up, but I do have a few small repairs. The police station's on the hit list, one of the first. Get some rock work to do over there on the left side of the building, and, you know, maybe we'll be fishing for quotes for paint, because that's a desperate need. And I don't want it to get too far behind. Another one is the front deck out here. Some of you may notice the railings, and the first few boards have been changed, and screws are popping off, blah, 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 all that
Yeah.
stuff, so. With your approval, and I don't know if I need it, but I'd like to change that material to that track stacking material. I think that's got some kind of mahogany on it,
Looks like it.
but kind of what they used on the loading dock out back here is what I'd like to go with. The only thing I gotta change is I have to make the steps probably a foot longer. Change those railings out so they'll incorporate with the other railings. So I need to bring those two steps out, probably 8 inches on each side. Not a big job, but
Yeah.
it's definitely time for the amount of usage it gets. Be a lot safer.
I noticed the first couple of boards take a little.
Yeah, they've been screwed down, there's like 11 different kinds of screws over the years and all that. And the cast iron railings, they're all starting to rot on the mounting brackets, et cetera, et cetera. And the wall transfer station's another thing. It runs from the building all the way down to the metals. I'd like to get that painted. But there is that mural that's all kind of banged up. I don't know how you feel about that, if that's okay to cover up, or
So under the opening.
No,
It runs the length of the
wall
parking.
itself.
yeah.
Because
The
I
mural,
looked right under where I throw my trash.
the building side, and then it kind of maybe runs about another 20, 30 feet or so.
Yeah.
25 pages.
But
It's
it's all
pretty,
scraped up.
yeah.
I mean,
it might look better one color than a scraped up mural.
right. so-
Well, or paint it one color and let the kids come back and do another mural.
Yeah, maybe we
you know?
leave the piece that's on the building part itself
Because
and
that's in good shape,
green out the rest, you
yeah.
know?
I mean, it's nice every few years to let them have a new art project, a new canvas, once it
Right.
gets dinged up,
Because they did make another mural in lieu of that one
yeah.
that we put on the can shack, so.
And I think the concrete takes a beating, so I'd say it's probably not a place for a mural.
Right, yeah, the plow blades running down it and everything else, so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's one of the early spring projects as well, is get that wall painted.
Rick,
I might have some help with that.
Yes,
so.
absolutely.
a group of people asked me, I did not have an answer, and I think I just want to direct them to you, about planters or some kind of like floral gardening in front of the building here, like taking it on as a community service project year in, year out, kind of the way people have done the triangle over here. Just send them to you and you talk to them about it.
Sure.
My understanding is they're talking about donating all the labor, all the materials, all the whatever.
Yeah, I might have even spoken to the same people
Okay.
at some point about that. And I'm like, yep, well, load me up with all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think they wanna come and do it.
Yeah,
So, but
because
they're gonna
that's
ask
even
you.
better. But I had a lot of plans for this side, but that project was kind of
Yeah.
changed everything, and I was
Yeah.
kind of waiting for them to get finished so I know where they were going with it. But there will be a lot of changes over this whole side.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, planters, I'm all for that. As most of you know, this building's about 98% painted, color change. It's just the trim that's left. Select board office got done on Monday.
That's great.
You're just chasing reds now and touch-ups. It's almost there.
Looks good.
It's just mainly clean Kim's office, and still the floor in Kim's office. So, yeah, that's kind of a busy place. Yeah, and just looking forward for the spring, get on the grounds, you know, it was almost there. Was almost there.
Still March.
Mhm.
We're showing.
But other than that, everything's running fine, furnaces are good. This one, as you know, last winter, during that below zero weather we had a furnace down here for a while, and of course my furnace guy was on vacation, so
Everybody got
I'm
cold.
very proud of myself, I actually rebuilt my furnace.
Wow.
Took a few days.
I have a quick question for you. So we encumbered those funds to do the energy, oh my gosh, I forgot what they're called.
The air exchangers.
Thank you.
HEVs, yeah.
Do we need to schedule that?
Yeah, actually I was gonna bring that up, because, to see where you wanted to go with that. I was just waiting to get by town meeting before we talked about that.
And I think it's the same contractor that did the library.
Yeah, we're gonna go with Rowell's, yeah, and I just wanna let you know, I did some research on energy usage, and it's more than, we haven't had a lot of time, but Mary put together, the electric cost, the difference, and it's almost double, so, something to think about. We can get the correct documentation for that, but, just something to think about.
Yeah. They run on electricity.
The bill in this building is cheaper than my house, believe it or not. So.
Well,
But yeah, we can pull the trigger on that.
So just to recap, that you said you were waiting on library to get back to some, sorry, I'm taking minutes and trying to also listen, it's really hard. So,
he just said he was waiting for town meeting to get all tied up so we can go
Before
into
we
it.
move forward
yeah,
with that, you know, booking that, you know, we just want to get past town meeting, make sure everything
And
was.
that Mary had noticed that the electric bill was considerably higher
after they installed.
after they put the.
Right,
Yeah.
compared to
Okay.
last year.
Gotcha,
The
okay.
period. Say it's only been a couple of months, but.
Okay.
And that certainly lengthens the buyback period. If you want to gather that information on the difference in the electric bills, let us know.
Yes, I'm working on it right now. Yeah. And the other thing I was waiting for is, a portion of that is, it's got to exhaust through our roofing, just because of the area that it's in, so that's on me. Not that it's a big deal, but,
Yeah.
we're gonna exhaust through the roof. Yeah, there's a lot of cons, but it can be done. I just hate putting more heat up there because that really,
Yeah.
we just did that installation and I'm not happy with how that worked out, but, yeah.
Did it cost more than you wanted, or the job
The
wasn't done as well?
results, it actually damned us up more,
Huh.
yeah.
I noticed it's pretty bad this winter.
Yeah. And we were really cold, so I'm kind of trying to weigh everything up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then, you know, again, I'm asking about energy, you know, where it took to
Oh, they
run
go up
those.
in the attic too?
Hmm.
This-
The exchanger.
The heat exchanger?
Yeah, they're in the furnace room, which is in the attic, as well as over across the street.
Yeah.
So they hook onto each one of our furnaces.
Oh, that's how it moves the eyes.
Yeah.
So like I say, I'm trying not to put more heat upstairs.
Yeah,
You
right.
want your attic as cold as possible.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So how could the installation have made the ice dam problem worse? Could it have been just a bad year for ice dams, which we get sometimes?
I mean, we get them, but it was the worst I've seen in my 9 years here, so I've never seen it that bad. In January, it was extremely brutal, so there's that too. There's a lot of things to weigh out.
And you think the insulation would make that less of a problem, not more? If it's keeping the heat down here.
Above this drop ceiling, it's about 60 degrees to 3 feet from here to the attic floor, so we don't have any, that was the whole purpose insulating, because we don't have any vapor barrier between us for some whatever reason why. Only the people in the 2000s would know.
Yeah,
So in a cold winter, the furnace is gonna run more, which
generates more heat.
make more heat in the attic. So that could be, cold winter.
And we were down a furnace for 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Well, that was fun.
Emily wasn't, she had a space heater.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'll gather that
Okay.
for you, and I'll put some things on paper, and just, you can make the final decision on which one to.
Okay.
All right.
But as far as moving forward on it,
Yep.
it's your call.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Have a good night.
You too, thank you.
Our next item is PA 60 Conservation Restriction Assessment.
Yes, do you want me to just kind of do a summary?
Yes, please.
Sure, so some parcels around Shakora Lake, the Shakora Lake Conservancy puts what's called a conservation covenancy on these properties. They're like deed restrictions. So they're things that say like, you can't have any more than one single family home on the property and then your usual outbuildings. And it says like, you can't clear cut the trees for views. No billboards or signs. So all the parcels have this as part of their deed. And it seems like in the past what happened was the assessor, whoever it was back in the 90s, saw those conservation covenancies and automatically used it as like a precursor for a conservation restriction, which reduces your assessment. And they're really not one and the same. Just because you have the conservation covenancy does not mean you qualify for the conservation restriction. In order to qualify for the conservation restriction, you have to have, the law says it pretty clearly, open space and a public benefit. So anyway, why this kind of all got brought to our attention now is because we had an application for the conservation restriction on our desk, and our assessor looked at it. And it's like a 4-acre parcel, and it has multiple, has a couple buildings. It's not what our assessor would consider open space, so he denied the application ultimately. But that kind of caused us to look at these other parcels around the lake. There are 4 that were brought to our attention that are currently getting a conservation restriction and perhaps shouldn't be for these same reasons. So this has been a lot of back and forth with the assessor, our attorney, and ultimately kind of got us up until just a couple days ago where we were prepared to say, yeah, you know what, I don't think that these qualify according to the law, and we're going to revoke them. But then one of the residents brought to my attention, hey, the town already tried to do this 20 years ago, and it went to court, it went to the BTLA, and the BTLA ruled in our favor for actually these 2 parcels out of the 4 that we're talking about, that they do qualify. And how it looks like how that happened, it's hard to piece together because I don't have all the documents from the BTLA. I tried to call them. Apparently, according to their statute on how long they have to keep documents, they were recently destroyed because it was before 2000 or at 2000. So all I have is the final rule that says Tamworth, this is the decision. There's nothing like supporting it. But it looks like how those qualify, these 2 specific parcels, is because they were able to, kind of similar to current use, carve out the land right around the house and the driveway and say, okay, this isn't in conservation, but the rest of my 4.5 acres, 5 acres, 6 acres is, because they meet the open space and public benefit requirements. So those 2 parcels were granted it. And the question for us now is, okay, what about the other 3 in question? So I've attached in your file here. So the two which circled in yellow, those 2 lots, which is 402-5 and 402-8, these are the ones that the BTLA ruled they get the conservation restriction. You can kind of see where I circled is where the house is, so you can see that there's some open space. One of the lots looks like it has a right-of-way or an access to the lake. To me, I talked with Alex Moot, who's the director of the CLC, and he actually even found it surprising that this was ruled in favor of the conservation restriction, because he said, you know, when we're looking at putting land in conservation, it's not a 3 to 4 acre parcel with a house on it.
And these 2 lots in yellow, the lot size is?
Those are, well, I can look it up, but I think they're around 5 acres.
Okay.
402-8 might be 6, but they're all less than 10. So then there's the 3 parcels on the lake that are circled in red. 402-9 and 407-116 are currently getting the conservation restriction, and 407-113 is the one that applied for it. So we're at a point right now where, you know, I was really hoping that we could make some decisions tonight and kind of treat everybody fairly. But the lawyer advised us that give us a little more time. We're trying to find information on that BTLA ruling from 20 years ago that really defined like the whys and the hows of these 2 parcels ruling in favor of it. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately just take some time and figure it out. So I don't know that we can make any actual decisions tonight.
So we have 2
But I
lots
know that
that
we have
have,
some members of the public who are here,
so we have 2 lots that have received a favorable ruling
Right,
that are sub 10 acre lots.
correct. Yeah, I found it surprising that there's no acreage minimum to put land into conservation. So in theory, and I mean this is what I was talking to Alex about today, I'm like, so I could have a 1 acre lot on the lake and just say, okay, keep my house, you know, out of it, but the rest of my acre put into conservation. And
Sure.
I
You can
guess-
write your deed any way you want to some extent.
Isn't there a second house on 107-116?
a second house.
Or a second building, if I'm thinking one thing? Because there's one down by the lake that's circled in red.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's something like right here.
Okay, there could be. I was kind of, this has been like a complicated onion, and every time I
Yeah.
peel back a layer, there's some more questions.
Whenever it's appropriate, I think I
I'm
can.
gonna ask a question, Peter, that I want you to answer in just 1 second.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't think we can make a decision tonight until we get whatever we can from the prior legal decisions. But I am curious, any other property, are you a property owner? I'm curious about to hear from the 2 of you, how you feel your property, I'm looking at the requirements to be considered, so it says you must satisfy all of the following, be subject to a recorded permanent conservation restriction, which sounds like you've got the deed restriction, be on open space land, protected in perpetuity, so all those 3 have to check. And then 1 or more of the following that demonstrates public benefit. Preservation of land for outdoor recreation by, or the education of, or the general public, whereby the general public must have regular opportunity for access to and use of the land for pedestrian purposes, so people can walk on your land. The land has...
Just to add, I have that conservation restriction already.
Okay, so, but the conservation restriction in the deed is only one thing that you have to have. Then you have to have all these other things too. So what I'm getting at is,
Well, I applied for it and I was given with those requirements in place.
Yeah.
So-
And what we're finding though, the problem is that what we think happened is that the assessor, at the time this was given to you as a tax benefit, actually didn't review the RSA. Because it seems that you're in compliance with the covenant language that some different parcels around the lake have, but it doesn't seem, we're trying to get to the bottom of whether you're actually compliant to the RSA. So what I'm reading to you now is the RSA. So what I'm asking both of you as property owners is your land open to public use? Can people walk on your land, go down to the lake? Just let me get through all four of them, and then you can pick the ones that apply. Is it a relatively natural habitat for fish, wildlife, or plants or similar ecosystems? The property must be in a relatively natural state and have rare, endangered, or threatened species present. A high-quality native terrestrial or aquatic ecosystem. Or preservation of open space land, whereas there is scenic enjoyment by the general public from a public way or from public waters. And the open space protection is pursuant to a clearly delineated federal, state, or local government conservation policy. Or it's preserving a historically important land area whereby the property is independently significant due to recorded local, region, or state history, or is within a historic district, or the property is immediately adjacent to a historic district, or the land's physical or environmental features contribute to the historic cultural integrity of the property listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So what we're trying to get to is, we have two documents. We've got the original conservation covenant agreement for Socorro Lake properties that seem like several properties have bought into and added to your deeds. You've got these deed restrictions. And those deed restrictions do not necessarily, in and of themselves, give you permission to have or the right to have a tax benefit. It just says you're protecting that region where you live to stay the way it is, the way that the backside of the lake's been for so long.
Right.
It's an agreement between neighbors saying, we're gonna keep this neighborhood looking the way it has for a long time. Doesn't entitle you to a tax benefit. What entitles you to a tax benefit is following all the steps on RSA 79B2.
Which
Yeah.
is what I did. I never considered the covenants part
Okay.
of this because that was a private homeowner's agreement as far as I understood.
Right.
But what I was given to understand by the state is if you had less than 10 acres, here was a way to protect the land. It's not current use because obviously you're not going to log it, but you can put it into conservation restriction. And the best way to go about that was to remove the footprint of your house, and I think the term is curtilage around it, which is like a 15, 20-foot buffer zone around that. That is not under conservation restriction. For me, that was about 0.6 of an acre. And the rest of it qualified for conservation restriction with those criteria in mind. And I was given it. I was never given any specific documentation about why. It said, yes, we accept that. And that's the way it's been for over 20 years now.
So you could, I think what would be helpful, because we're seeing the problem is not necessarily in how you applied, but it's in how the assessor didn't mesh the two, didn't mesh the legal document with the rest of it. So would you
Well,
be...
he had it, and I'm sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt, but he had it, he talked to the state, I talked to the state. The conservation restriction was accepted under those criteria, not the CLC
Right.
criteria, but under these, I guess it's a state thing, I'm not sure. State.
It is a state RSA, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yep,
so under
yep.
the state criteria, it was accepted, and, I went to quite a bit
Yeah.
of work to make sure that that was accepted, because I'm very concerned about the preservation of that land, given its context at that end of the lake.
Family history and everything
And,
else.
and the Bowles Preserve, and the fact that the Socorro Lake Basin is part of a historical register.
At glancing at the RSA, I think you could make an argument it meets the RSA. But I think you folks need to individually read the RSA and come back to us and tell us how you meet it.
Can you just share your documentation that you received, or whatever you shared with the state to get this? Can you just share it with Emily, and then,
I guess, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, my confusion is, it was accepted by the state. There have been no changes in the law regarding that. I mean, I think I asked Emily about that on the phone, and the answer was no. So I'm not quite sure where this is coming from.
Well, I think what's happening is, other property owners around the lake are going, well, he got it, why shouldn't I get it?
So that's a new application. We have to rule on a new application. It was denied. The neighbor said, my neighbors have it, so we have to go now looking.
just to make, we're not saying that we're denying you, we're just trying to find out what the different property owners, what steps they went through to meet the RSA.
Maybe your neighbor's property doesn't meet the requirements, yours does, but
We have to ask the question.
their argument is, well, my neighbor got it, why shouldn't I get it?
Yeah, and
And
then,
that's generally not a good
That's just what
reason.
we're dealing with, you know.
Sorry, I'm that neighbor, and that's not my only argument. I sat down with the assessor, went through it, we went through all the steps, we took out the developed portion, we met the criteria. And if you read through some of those conservation covenants, they do put you into the issues that you just went through, Leanne, on those steps.
Mhm.
So if you read it, you know, things like maintaining the character of the landscape, protecting natural resources. You're not allowed to touch ground resources, minerals, sand, gravel, etc. So there are, you know, quite a few, 11 different things there that do kind of link back. You know, I don't understand it all, I'm not an attorney, but I'd like to know the other two that were approved, what level court did they go to get that approval?
the Board of Tax and Land Appeals, and that's what I'm trying to get, is that documentation that supported their decision to grant it. It was, and I will say, as far as the covenants goes, you're right, they're set, it's set that way to protect the land for sure, but there's nothing stopping you in those covenants from tearing down your house or building an addition or building a 6,000 square foot house, so long as you don't exceed the tree line and you're 75 feet from the setback.
I'm not sure about that, because most of those covenants have a restriction of how many buildings can be on one lot.
How many buildings, but how big of a building? I mean, it's just, it's not, that covenancy doesn't offer the same level of protection as a conservation restriction. It's not one and the same. So we can't look at it and say, just because you have this covenancy, you automatically qualify for the conservation restriction.
And if I'm not mistaken, our assessor thought you met the requirements and then looked further into it later and changed his mind.
That
Just
is-
to be clear.
yes.
That's, so you were misinformed.
Yeah, I was misinformed a few times along the way. Even the letter I got said, you don't qualify because you don't have 10 acres. That had nothing to do with
Yeah.
what I applied for.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the other issue was, it was approved by the board, but when I reviewed the meeting minutes, I never saw it rescinded by the board. So that was confusing to
That
me
we
too, because
haven't
I don't
yet.
know what the process is.
And that's what we're doing right now. So part of the problem is, and we're getting better at this, is that we get an enormous amount of like technical paperwork coming across our desk. And we have to do a better job, which is what we're trying to do now, to make sure that we are being as fair as possible to all taxpayers in town. And so, one thing that happened about a year ago, some folks wanted to donate land to the town under conservation easement, which takes it out of the tax rolls, right? So one of the big questions we really chewed over, and I think we had 2 separate meetings discussing it, was what's the benefit to the town, and does it offset the loss of taxes? And does it meet the letter of the law? We have people who have to move out of town because they can't afford their taxes. So we've made a commitment to taking requests for tax reductions very seriously. So what we're saying is that this covenant agreement is a private agreement between neighbors. And it does make agreements. So you as a property owner say, I wanna live in this space, I wanna keep it beautiful, I wanna maintain this, I wanna make sure that our neighborhood stays this way in perpetuity. That's a personal choice that this does not afford you any tax benefit. It's just your choice of a lifestyle.
I'm not sure it's a personal choice, it's a covenant in your deed, it cannot be changed.
Yeah, and you
in
chose to buy the
perpetuity.
property, so it's a personal choice. So
Okay, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know.
yeah,
if
but
it's
you
a
bought
personal
the
choice.
land, or you bought the property whenever you
Yeah.
bought it, and it had the deed restrictions on it.
Yeah,
And that, like, you knew that because that was disclosed. The RSA that gives you the right to a tax benefit is a completely different thing. You do not have to have the Shakara, the conservation covenant in order to get the tax benefit. You can have a tax benefit without being part of that. You may, depending on your lot, be able to get a tax benefit because this meets the same agreement. This is what we're trying to figure out,
Understood.
which lots actually meet both. And it seems that a former assessor erroneously conflated the two, and we're trying to suss it out.
not only an assessor, but the Board of Tax and Land Appeals, I mean, that's going up how many levels?
Well,
to
and
discuss
they
that?
might, so we're looking at how many different lots? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots
Yeah.
in question here?
Right.
So,
That we know of.
Yeah.
Shore Lake Conservancy is the whole basin. I don't know how many homes that is, Alex could tell you. My guess is a couple hundred.
Right,
but maybe
so-
I
not
didn't-
all are asking for tax.
Right, I didn't research all
Yeah.
that, and I don't wanna throw other people under the bus, it's just,
yeah. Ours,
If I can
think-
interject
Yeah,
here, that was the point I made initially, is I didn't take the conservation, the CLC covenants into account
Right.
when I applied for the conservation restriction. And I applied with the help of the town assessor and with the criteria from the state. And I got the conservation restriction, and I've had it for more than 20 years.
and I'm so sorry, but can you tell me your name and your lot?
It's Peter Whipple.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have the lot number there? 'Cause I have
Which
it
one is
somewhere.
you? No, I don't.
Is it 40209?
Might be
I
something.
think, I think it is,
It is.
Yes, it is.
40209.
yeah,
Is it 09 or 90? That's what I have.
backwards.
Yeah.
409. Okay. and-
Okay.
So let me ask you a question, Emily, based on what Peter just said.
Sure.
So Rod, the assessor, after looking at the current request for Ms. Habert, then looked at the other ones, so he
Yeah.
went into the files.
Yes, and I think what he basically did was looked at, because we're really only concerned with lots that are less than 10 acres, because if they're over 10 acres, they meet current use requirements
Right.
anyway. So what he did is he looked at the lots that were under 10 acres that currently receive this conservation restriction, and red flagged the ones that he's like, oh, I don't think these do, and I think he was looking solely at the fact that it's developed, right?
but the whole thing with the development is you're circling that both on in current use and on this, conservation restriction assessment. Part of the process is you go through and you remove the developed areas.
Well, that is the case
Yeah,
with
but-
current use, but I think Rod was, when he initially red flagged all these, and this is why it's been like a day by day thing. I haven't had all the answers. But when Rod red flagged these, I think he was under the impression of just simply the fact that these are developed and not considered open space means they shouldn't qualify. After further digging and talking with our lawyer about it, I said, well, hold on, if they can, much like current use, if they can carve out the part of their parcel that has their house on it, their driveway, can they exclude that and put the rest into conservation? He said, yes, they should be able to do that, but we'd need a map. And that's kind of where we're standing right now is, okay, so it looks like some of these, much like 402-5 and 402-8 that already went to the BTLA, was ruled in favor.
I just want to remind you that mine was also ruled in favor too. I wasn't part of that situation with those two
Did yours go
lots.
to the BTLA?
Yes, I went through the state. I've talked to the assessor, the impression I was given by the state is conservation restriction was specifically to address plots less than 10 acres.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why
I
there
think
was a...
she's talking about the two lots on either side of you that actually took the town to court to
Yeah.
argue this.
Right,
When she
right.
says, but you weren't part of that.
No,
You were-
I was several years later.
Right.
Oh, you're
And
saying it's
when-
the same process and the BTLA rules? That's
Yes.
what you're saying, yes, so yes, it's the same process, just a different case.
Okay.
And,
Well, I was given
No,
the conservation
no.
restrictions.
okay, then
but I
that's
think-
different.
No, that's a difference,
That's
because he applied and got it.
I got it, yeah, and I've had it
It's
for
not the
over 20
BTLA,
years.
it's
Right.
different.
And fulfilled the criteria
Right,
that the state requested.
understood.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
So, Ms. Haber, can you, you might not have this in front of you, but, so your property, and I'm only looking at this map that we have, looks to, how many acres is your lot?
I'm just under 5.
Okay, and it's got a tennis court and a house, and what's the third?
There's a little cottage, but that's, I'm not allowed to rent publicly.
Okay, so it's got
restriction.
two living
It's a
dwellings
duplex.
and it's a duplex?
A duplex, the house is a duplex.
This is somehow marking 3 separate things on the lot.
Right, a house, a cottage, and a tennis court.
He's saying that it's
Yeah, there's a house that's a duplex.
Oh, and then a cottage.
And
And
then
the
a tennis
tennis court is not in use, it's overgrown with grass in it.
Okay, but it's still not a natural space. So you've got a less than 5 acre lot with three developed bits to it.
Yeah.
And if you're granted this, are you willing to let people like take walks on your property or access the lake from your property?
Well, that's an interesting question, because that's part of the PA 60 application. And when I reviewed it with Rod, we discussed it, and he said it's not worth doing.
Okay.
You have an option to do that or not on that application.
So you have four things. You have to do one of these. So you can have the option to make it publicly accessible.
Right.
Because the reason behind that is you're paying less in tax, and the way that I, as another taxpayer, can put up with you paying less is that I get to walk on your land. So my benefit to you paying less tax is that I get to access the lake from that lot. So that's one choice. The other is that it's got to be, the lot has to be in a relatively natural state, which it isn't because it's got developments on it.
But the things that are developed are removed from the
Yeah, no, that's not what the RSA, that's not the RSA part. It's, you have to have one of these 4 criteria. So, and rare or endangered or threatened species present. So, I mean, you could do an evaluation to see if it,
Yeah, I'm still not clear on number 2, that your interpretation is correct. I don't know, I'm not.
I'm just reading the RSA,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
I'm not
interpreting
an
it, I'm just
attorney,
reading it, because I'm not trying
Right,
to interpret.
but
Yep.
even on current use, you carve out the developed area. So there is developed area, not developed.
So I think
open
that, so if you
space.
want to make that argument, what I would push back on is saying, you have a small lot, and,
As everyone who
okay,
applies for
but
this,
yours
'cause
has the
they're
most
under 10
development on
acres.
it, and so if we're pulling out the developed area, there's not much wild space left. So let's
Actually,
look,
there's quite a bit. I went through it with Rod and he came up with the number.
yeah,
We did that exercise together.
I am curious because I have never seen a parcel with current use have like multiple, like, okay, here's where the tennis court is, I'm carving that out, here's the house, I'm carving that out, here's the cottage, and all the land in between is in current
I
use.
think-
I've only ever seen current use as like, this is the part of the lot that's not in current use and the rest is.
Well, he's the
I would-
assessor and that's how he did it. I don't.
I
So
would
I-
also like to point out again, this is not to meet current use criteria. It's to meet conservation restriction
Right, but she just
criteria.
compared it,
2 different things.
right, but she just compared it to how we do current use, and I'm saying,
Right,
how we
this-
do current use.
Okay,
Because
so-
we have to use the same application piece.
We don't need to have a current use conversation. I was gonna say,
Right.
like with current use, like say you had a 10-acre lot and you had a house on it, if it was exactly 10 acres, you cannot put it in
Right.
current use because you're taking out your house with surrounding area and like even probably your lawn and like,
As a tenant.
as well as your driveway.
Yeah.
So like the tennis court, you'd probably have to show access to, you'd have to carve out
Yeah.
access.
Driveway.
Like it would all, this, yeah, I don't know. So, anyway.
I think we both have some work to do.
Yeah.
I think we have to look further into the tax appeal records, and I think any landowner that wants this tax benefit needs to take the RSA and provide us with some information, a letter or an email, as to how you think you meet that.
Well,
And personally, I think if you read it, most, I don't know if all, most of the lots will meet it. Maybe not all.
Four,
I don't know about that.
is 407-116,
Yeah.
is that in this conservation? Is that, it's outlined in yellow?
Yes, that's the part, yeah, that's the lot.
And that one has it,
Yes, all of these,
except for,
for this one's applying for it,
okay,
and these ones all currently get it.
okay.
Yeah. And originally I was really trying to approach this like we have to come up with a one size fits all. If you qualify, you get it. But it's we really have to look at each lot.
Yeah.
Because when we're talking about open space and public benefit,
Yeah.
each lot is individual.
Right, and I think as the lots get smaller and there are more structures on them, it's a harder case to make, in my view.
Ned Beecher has it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I thought I had brought the map of the whole plot. This is the part, the footprint that I took out, which is 0.6 acres of a lot that is, I believe, 6.2 or 6.8. So this is the two buildings, a barn or garage, the house, and the driveway to it, and the path down to the lake, and I believe it's a 15-foot buffer zone.
Around the house.
Around that footprint.
Okay.
That is what I submitted along with a map of the whole plot, and that's what gave me conservation restriction, which I have right now. So,
Is that must be on file?
I believe it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
oh, well, you can keep it if you want.
Sure.
Is that your only copy though?
No,
Okay, thank you.
and I also do have a map that I had made of that piece within the context of the whole thing, and it really is quite separate. And there are marshlands there, wetlands, lady slippers, pitcher plants, all that.
Yeah, so you check a lot of boxes, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe, again, I think that 407-116, I think there is a second, like, I don't know if it's camp, house, whatever, on that lot. I'm pretty
I'll
sure.
look, okay.
Did you have a comment?
I did, I didn't know if it was helpful, but in 79B, which is what you are referencing mostly, and there's another RSA that I'm not familiar with, 477, I assume that's the assessment one, I don't know. But anyway, don't worry about 477 right now, I haven't looked at it. But 79B, sort of the one question that I still have that I don't think was covered is the nature of the restriction needs to be permanent, and I think there's a reference to 477-45, granted in perpetuity to a federal, state, county, local, or other government body, or to a charitable, educational, or other nonprofit corporation. And apparently that, just sort of a quick look, in 2010, there was a New Hampshire Supreme Court case that sort of decided this further, so there may be more, that certainly is after your determination. So that court case may be what people are beginning to point to now, that 2010 case, Manchester Waterworks versus Auburn. So anyway, I think the beauty is, in terms of looking at it from a conservation commission point or conservation point of view, those restrictions around Chicora Lake are excellent, and we totally appreciate landowners paying attention to conservation. But and I don't know the nature of the deeds, whether the deeds have permanent restrictions granted to some other organization.
They're in perpetuity to the Chicora Lake Conservancy.
And if that is, Chicora Lake is a nonprofit dedicated land trust, and if those deeds have permanent, and I don't know if they're recorded?
They're recorded.
Recorded, and the and the conservation values are granted to the Chicora Lake Conservancy?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so that would be a reading of the deed that would fit that need for those conservation restrictions to be transferred to another organization. If it's just a deed, I think as you were saying, Emily, a personal property deed, somebody can actually change that. The property owner can change that. It may take a little
Right.
checking with different organizations or with neighbors. But there is, if it's just a deed restriction, that is something that can be changed and is not considered in perpetuity. So,
Yeah,
the fine
refers-
reading of that
Yeah,
would be.
it refers to the comprehensive conservation plan for the Chicora Lake Basin, and agrees with the Chicora Lake Conservancy Foundation of Tamworth, County of Carroll, State of New Hampshire.
I'm not sure quite, just to make sure that I'm following you or vice versa. The covenants on the properties are in perpetuity. And so, for instance, for Miriam, she bought the property
With the covenant on it.
with the covenants on it,
Right.
with the understanding that they were permanent,
Right.
as is the case with my property, which is under covenants from the CLC, and as I mentioned, under conservation
Yeah.
restriction
Yeah.
from the state.
And the CLC may have legal understanding of how those are then meeting 79B.
And that would be good to check in again, because Emily did meet with Alex Moot, and he didn't feel that the properties met the RSA. So there's a lot to untangle here. Nothing's being decided tonight,
No.
because we need to get a lot more information from the powers that know more about this than we do.
Sure.
Yeah.
It just seems a little bit silly to rehash something that we already went to the Board of Tax and Land Appeals. Like, I'm just kind of
Well, we wouldn't.
wondering, you know.
Whoever got that from that entity, that's off the table. We're not gonna change that. It's those who don't have that.
So going back to kind of where you minimize my asking for it because my neighbors have it, I think that's how we operate, don't we? That people are taxed equally on an equal basis. So I didn't really appreciate that
I'm
kind
sorry.
of innuendo.
I
It made me feel a
apologize.
little like, really?
I apologize for that.
You know, I'm here because I'm trying to understand it, and
And we are too.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a huge deal, it just seems like, why has it become a huge deal?
Well, you know, you just summed up why it became a huge deal, and it is about taxation in a town with a really high percentage of land that's in protected status of some sort, whether it's because it's state or national forest, or whether it's conservation easement, and these are things that we think make our town like amazing. But it does put a higher burden on the rest of us who have property that is not in a protected status to keep the lights on for the town. So we have to look carefully at requests to make sure that they jibe with the law, the intent of the law and the letter of the law both, not just the intent. And it's a terrible position to be in if somebody, you know, decades ago was being cursory or confusing things, or however things got misaligned that bring us to this point where we're saying, but this language that got you an automatic kind of buy doesn't actually line up with the law. We're just trying to untangle it. And it may work out that it all works out in your favor. And it may work out that it doesn't, because we have to be fair to people. And we're not taking this lightly. We're gonna really do a lot of digging and talking to the Chicora Lake Conservancy again, track down the cases so we can see what the precedent were, the two precedents were, that the courts already approved on. So we're gonna and we're gonna have to move fast because there's a deadline coming up, so, for you to
Yeah,
get
because it's
approved.
been, I think, over a year for me since I was first denied, so.
Yeah, it was actually, it's an anniversary, it was
Yeah.
March 24th.
Oh, well, happy
1 year ago.
anniversary.
And our assessor did say that if we end up finding that we should approve your application, you will get an abatement for the 24.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate all your help.
I'm trying.
It's
I'm
been so,
You know, the open,
so good.
specifically with your lot, it's the open space that's tricky. So we gotta, but we'll do our work.
Okay,
I
thank you.
add one more comment that I don't know who spoke to Alex Moot, but I don't think he has a clear understanding of what's going on here, because
He
for him
actually-
to say, those lots so small, you know, it was.
No, it was actually, I was surprised at how informed he was. Because, but he said that he was surprised that these would qualify for conservation because they're small, developed lots.
Okay, well, that's where he would be flat out mistaken, because that's what the conservation restriction was all about, was for smaller lots.
Smaller lots, developed. You know, it's specifically when we're talking open space. I mean, when you're
Yeah.
looking at a bird's eye view of some of these lots and you're seeing multiple buildings and tennis courts, you know, it doesn't feel like open space. It doesn't feel like land that would be, you know, in conservation.
I
So,
think we better leave it there
Yeah.
because we've all made our points and our observations, and there's a lot more studying to do, and we will do that. But we're going to move on.
Just to interrupt before we leave the topic, what do you need from me to maintain my status?
Nothing right now. You are good right now. If you could find any documents from the court case in 1999.
I had nothing to do with it.
He wasn't
No, he wasn't in the court case.
I know, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So, but what other documentation could I give you?
So you,
Nothing.
But I should've
assuming
did
your application has gotta be in your file here. So I guess we have what that was.
Okay,
And we'll look at that to see where the confusion is, like why Rod has reversed in his mind that qualification. But we can figure that out looking at the application and talking to him,
okay.
and call you if we have any questions.
Okay, yeah, and if
Yeah.
you could maybe send me the, since I don't seem to have that same piece of paper, the criteria that are mentioned.
Sure.
So,
Oh, that from the RSA
yeah,
that I was just mentioning? Yeah, sure thing.
okay.
Can you send that, Emily?
Yeah, I think when I sent out my letters to everybody, I said, please see attached RSA,
Oh, right,
and
yeah, we
I
talked about that, yeah.
forgot to put it in, so
No,
yeah,
okay.
my
no.
email.
And maybe some people don't know RSA means state law.
Yeah,
That's what RSA.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
It was a new word for me a few years ago.
Emily, can you copy that to me?
Yeah, yeah,
I
absolutely.
think anybody who's in question should just,
Yeah, there's
Get it,
5
yeah.
of them,
Yeah.
I got you.
Okay.
Okay, no problem.
thank you for coming
I do
in
have a
though.
folder full of stuff that I haven't looked at for 20 years,
Yeah.
because it was a done deal.
Dust
So
it,
I'd
dust
be
it
happy to
off.
go through it.
That'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right.
thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Transfer station compactor concrete and electrical bid awards. Richard will lead this.
So, late last year, we acquired a new ground level MSW compactor, and it needs electrical work and a concrete pad to make it go. We developed requests for bids. The bids are due last Friday. Emily and I opened them Monday. We received multiple bids for the concrete work. Cobalt Construction, who was the low bidder on the bathroom project. Their bid for the concrete work was $27,810. Conti Property Solutions, $10,738.40. East Coast Foundation, $5,896. See, there's a very positive trend here, down. US EV Power Systems, a division of Notchland LLC, $4,925. So the low bidder was US EV Power Systems, division of Notchland LLC. They're from Hart's location. Electrical, there were 2 bids for the electrical work. 2 entities submitted bids on both. So Cobalt Construction, $18,560.50. US EV Power Systems, $3,300.
Wait,
So
could you repeat those two numbers?
for electrical,
Yeah,
Cobalt, $18,560.50.
and then the second was 3?
3,300.
Wide range.
Okay.
So US EV Power Systems was the low bidder on both. which from a construction management standpoint is very handy, because you only have to deal with one entity doing the construction. I've had some conversations via email with this entity. The principals are Tom Bergeron, mechanical engineer, and Gary Bergeron, master electrician. One of those individuals will be on site if they were awarded the contracts. I'm still finding out what their construction windows are. Ideally, we'd like to do this before the bathroom, do it in April. I don't know if they can move that fast. If not, then they could do it during, or probably not during, but after the bathroom, so it's not too busy. The one thing to worry about with the concrete and electrical, particularly electrical, they have to put the electrical line under where the traffic now goes to throw your trash away. So that's, it may cause us to shut down the transfer station one Wednesday. Or we alter the operations to make it work. And I have at least 3 ways we could maybe do it. But most of their work is for the federal government, and that's what, I don't know, I had never heard of them. I don't know if you have, Emery.
No, I haven't heard of it.
No.
They do a lot of work for the military. They're doing work in New Hampshire, Department of Military Affairs and Veteran Services, and a project at the Armed Forces Reserve Center in the Socrates, New York. So they were very clearly the low bidder on both. One thing that was interesting as well is inadvertently, if I don't know if you remember, but there's a concrete pad, and also the vendor for the compactor recommended steel plates on the concrete. If you recall, we did that to our existing one 4 years ago, something like that, 3-4 years ago.
3 years ago. Yeah.
And I can't remember how much that was. I think Mike Davis did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't cheap, $4,000 or $5,000, something like that. That graphic showing the recommended steel plates went into the bid inadvertently, so they bid on it as an addendum. So it was good to see, well, how much would that cost? That was $3,100, which is a heck of a price for that.
Yeah.
I think just getting the steel for that price, that's pretty good. So I would like to recommend that we award the concrete and the electrical work to US EV Power Systems.
Did we get,
Parts
I mean, I know you sounds like you read where else they've been working. Did we get any references,
Nope.
local references from them?
Nope.
I would like to recommend that we get, they're at a Hart's location.
Yep.
I would recommend that we get some references from them. I know a lot of the other names on that.
Yep.
Just never heard of them. I'm not saying that anything negative. I just maybe it would be.
It's so much lower that it's almost worrisome. And we did have a, like we have had different projects before where, we tend to go for the low bid and
Didn't work out?
and we ended up spending more money to fix the low bid. It's not even in the ballpark of the other ones, so it just makes me like,
Well,
how do you pull that
The
off?
concrete's pretty close. Did anybody else bid on the addendum for the steel?
No.
Okay. So I was just curious if we had like a comparison for that.
Yeah.
The concrete was pretty close. I mean, it was low, but it was pretty close.
Yeah, the other low concrete was $58.96, so $1,000 more. That's pretty close.
Yep, that's close. It was the electrical though.
But with Cobalt, it's not like, I don't believe they have any electricians working for them, so they're probably going to sub that out.
Right.
Maybe they just threw a number out there.
And one thing that I did find out from this folks is they're in-house, so they're not subbing anything out. So that's one reason why it's cheaper. They say they have
Okay.
in-house staff that does the work, and I don't know anybody who does that.
Notchland Construction?
Nope.
What is it?
Notchland LLC.
LLC.
So they, according to their principal, they specialize in work for the military. And my guess is anybody you bring on site for that work needs a security clearance. So they have everybody working for them, so they don't have to go find a new sub and have that person go through a background check. That's probably why they have all their own staff.
Notchland LLC comes up with the Notchland Inn.
Right, I looked it up, all I got was the Notchland.
What was their name? They were under Notchland LLC?
US EV Power Systems.
US EV Power Systems.
Yeah, so I guess they do solar arrays as well. And that's where the electrical work comes from.
Blue Investment Group.
I don't know, I mean, does anybody else have I mean, it sounds good, but I just wanna cross
They're
it.
just not coming, like basic Google search, they're not
Yeah.
coming up.
I think because they're not out there, building playgrounds or houses or industrial parks. They specialize in military work, so you just don't see them around.
Why are they asking for this bid if they specialize in military work?
Couldn't say. I mean, I wouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth, because if you look at the bid, they give you a day-by-day breakdown of what they'll do. And nobody else did that.
For $7,000 of work, they went through all this trouble.
Yeah. It was short, the response was short, it was, a page and a half.
Yeah.
Others put together more pages, but it was sometimes more BS, some of the other bids in general. I'm less interested in how great they are than, can you show me how you're gonna do the work? Certainly I can get references. If we should take whatever time we need to take for all to be comfortable with it.
Could
If
we-
we wait
could
for
we
a
do
meeting or two, then it's not gonna get done in April.
Could
It'll
we-
have to
Right.
go after.
Could we, do, like, award the bid contingent on 3 positive references?
Yeah. And like you two could talk about it, I don't need to be part of that conversation. It seems like everybody else we've kind of been doing business with has had some kind of local footprint.
Yep.
And this is I'm not, granted, it's a quick search,
Um,
but no footprint under any of the names.
The other question I had about doing the work in April is all the frost out up there at the transfer station. That would be something if we're trying to do it in April, be careful that we don't.
Yeah,
Even if the first foot of frost is out, I'm sure that went pretty deep up there, and not to
I
pour
wonder
concrete
how-
over.
how 6 inches of pavement affects that though?
It
It
was
was all under 6 inches of pavement. The concrete and the electrical.
But the pavement's getting removed, right?
Right.
Yeah, but usually the frost will, anywhere that it's driven over, like even out in a paved road, it'll drive the deepest.
Okay.
You, like the more it's highly traveled, the deeper the
Mm-hmm.
even under pavement. So just something to think about.
There's
Be
a lot of
careful.
frost up there.
Yeah, just to be careful, and it's kind of wet ground up there.
Yeah, that's
So
for sure.
it would be nice to get it done, and
Yeah.
out
Be
of the
done with
way.
it.
It's such a tight site, it's be hard to do 2 projects at
Yeah.
once, so then it would just go after. And, maybe just have them start when cobalt is on the interior of the bathroom, so that, the ground's not too hard.
I'm okay awarding conditionally of getting some positive references, having you and Carl say, yep, no, it is legit, they do have and whoever. I'm just saying, that's not my skill set, but
Yeah.
I'm okay voting to award it conditionally, as long as we see that they're not ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bergeron's a name from up there, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
When
well,
I
that's
saw
what-
first the name, I
Yeah.
thought it was a different couple of
their
Bergerons.
engineering, yeah.
Do we have a second? Did you make a motion?
I did make a motion.
Second,
And do we need to change the motion contingent on positive references?
Yes, so amended.
Okay.
second amended,
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
Okay.
Thanks
Yes,
for
0 no.
sticking with all that, Richard, that's
Yeah, thanks for the work.
a lot of work.
Uh,
Night, Brian.
Now, we go to personnel policy. Sick bank.
Okay, did you get a chance to look at I sent you the, last rough draft of the personnel policy before we accepted a final draft. And the reason I did that is because, we have a situation with a town employee who is needing two separate surgeries, and the surgeries will keep them out of work beyond the time off that they have banked, including personal time, vacation time, and sick time. In the past, what's happened is an employee would say, oh, I need like another 9 days off or 7 days off. Anybody willing to kick in a day or two from your own bank, and people have either chosen to do that or not. When we were going through the personnel policy process, we actually wrote that into the document, and the lawyers were like, whoa, no, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen, because if Carl needs a hip replacement, not another one, but if you need a hip replacement, doesn't have the days, and then asks us, and we're like, we don't even like Carl, no, but then Richard has a hip replacement and we give it to him, it opens the door for discrimination.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't have
We
been
both
an
had
ass. You probably would've given it to you.
So we took that out and we went with the sick bank idea, which is something the Brett School actually does. It's very common in bigger companies. Other municipalities use it. I think Molten Borough might even use it. The Brett School uses it. Madison School uses it. Kennett, like schools use it all the time.
Yeah.
A sick bank is a mechanism where at the beginning or the end of each year, an individual has the option, no one has to, they can say, oh, I'll donate. And I think in the personnel policy, because we're banking hours, we put it in terms of hours. I'll donate X hours and not to exceed 2 days of my time towards the pool. And then that way, when Carl needs a broken hip, doesn't matter if he's an ass or not, he can apply to the select board, and as long as you haven't been that way to us, you're okay. And there's a form you fill out requesting X days with a doctor's note attached, explaining that it is. You have to max out, you have to use up everything else you have already, and then you come to the bank for the remainder so that you're not forced to be without pay. At the last minute, the last meeting between Keats and the committee, Linda and me, and Elaine and the attorney, Elaine was concerned about how to bank that liability of sick days year to year. And she was pretty steadfast about that, and we were already overdue on this policy, so we let it go, and here it is like a year later, we need it. So I talked to Heather at the SAU office, asking how they bank it, since the SAU deals with 2 of the 3 districts with sick banks. And she went through the past 2 years of audits and said that they don't actually bank the sick bank. The only thing that they bank is individuals, because they need to keep it charted for retirement payout. The rest of it, it goes into the pool, and it's not part of the financial stream. So I'm bringing this up again because we're already in a situation where somebody's going to be in a very hard financial situation. To bring up some scenarios that we have. We can reinstate the sick bank, which doesn't seem to be a big deal as far as booking a liability goes financially. We can, Emily looked into short-term disability insurance, which gives people, I think it's like after your first missed paycheck, it kicks in, is that how it works? And then you can get up to 12 weeks of pay at 60%. The town pays for that policy, and it would be about $300 an employee, or $3,600 a year for those who are eligible for benefits.
Yeah, just total.
Yeah, so the trick with that is, yes, it does pay people 60% for up to 12 weeks, which is, not bad. But it's like an insurance policy that the town would have to pay for every year to the tune of $3,600 plus or minus, that we may or may not use. And so that's $3,600 that's raised by taxes and then basically given away to the insurance company. The third option that we see is that we can do nothing and our employee has to figure it out. But we really can't go the old school way of saying, yes, people can voluntarily give their time. I mean, we could. Legal counsel strongly recommends it, that we don't.
Well, how would so we don't have a bank now,
No.
but if we create one, how's that gonna help this person who needs it right now?
Well, so that's a trick we would have to ask. Carrie Ann's our new town council. we would have to ask her, the way the policy was written, and we can change the wording, or we can start it now, so this would technically be the beginning of this year. And then you ask people to donate. So the trick is, this year, the maximum, if everybody gave one, what is it, 12 people who have benefits? If everybody chose to give one, you'd only have 12 days. If everybody chose to give two, 24 days. So you'd have 12 to 24 days in the pool this year. We haven't had this case come up since I've been on the board. So that would, theoretically, cover this person who I think, do you remember the shortfall?
I'm sorry, there was a comment on.
I want to say the shortfall, if I'm remembering it correctly, for this individual, once they use all of their personal time, all of their vacation time, whatever else, is 7 days. Estimated based on what the doctor says recovery time is.
Well, yeah, this also brings up, I don't remember seeing this in the personnel policy. Can an individual request to use time that's not earned yet, but in advance? So like, I will have earned a week,
Yeah.
By the end of the year, can I use it now?
Yep, and so, yeah, because remember we're accruing now, so the attorney did say we could do that. You'd have to have some letter of agreement that would be drafted, that the person would agree that it's like pre-borrowing against your earned time. And then if for whatever reason they left their job, whether they quit, they were fired, whatever, before then, they would have to reimburse the town for that amount, that equivalent. We kind of left that out of this scenario because we wouldn't technically need it this year. Oh, you're saying instead of doing a sick bank, let that person borrow against their own?
I mean, taking this person out of it, just like in general, can somebody do that?
That was the attorney's least favorite option because there's a lot of tracking. Like that's gonna make the financial person have to track in advance, and then as you earn it, subtract it back. It's adding a lot to that person's plate. It's not impossible, but it's messy.
Chairman, are you allowing a comment from Zoom at the moment regarding this?
Oh, sure.
Yep, I can read that.
Okay, the town used to offer employees Aflac that they could purchase, which is disability insurance. The town did not pay for the insurance, but the individuals did, and that's from Becky. And yeah, that still stands. Our employees are able to purchase short-term disability through Aflac. I think it's something like $13 a pay period. Same with our, I have to actually check with our town policy if you chose to go that way. It has to be like an unforeseen thing. It can't be,
Scheduled
Right.
surgery.
yeah.
Yep.
So.
So, what other information do you need?
Are you proposing that we create this bank, bank, or what, are you making a proposal?
I'm making a proposal that we bring in the email that I sent you, it was the draft, the pre-approved final draft of the personnel policy referencing pages, I think 20 and 21, which shows you the sick bank language. And I also attached to it the form that people use to donate and seek the days. To me, yes, we can do Aflac, that puts a burden on that puts another burden on people to pay in. And it doesn't fit this kind of situation. And this seems like a kind of a win-win way. If people can choose to participate in it or choose not to, it doesn't cost the town more money. But it does provide a benefit for our town employees if if the situation comes where they need it. So my recommendation would be to pull that back from the draft and add it into our personnel policy. And, yeah.
The last place I worked had a sick bank and it worked great.
Mhm.
And the organization could keep its employees on the books, but also the other employees were giving away a benefit that was gonna cost the entity later when people retired. So it kind of worked out for everybody. It's not a total loss to the employer.
Oh, that's.
So I think in
yeah.
general, particularly when you have a place that you get paid out for some percent value of your
Right.
leftover sick leave, the employer benefits as well.
That's a good point.
So I think a sick bank is a great idea.
Do we need a motion?
We would need a motion because we would be adding it to the policy, do we? When we change policy,
I'd have to look into that.
do we need a hearing for public input?
Did you have to do that for the personnel?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
You guys just did it.
I mean, it's been shared in public a
Mm-hmm.
number of times because we shared the drafts, so,
Yeah, it gets, Becky says it would be added as an amendment to the policy.
okay.
Yeah, and I don't think that is public.
I'll make a motion, we create a sick bank as described by Leanne. I'll
Second.
keep that as short a possible motion.
Yeah. And we have a second. Any discussion, more discussion? Good. Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes?
Okay, I will pull that out of the draft, give it to Emily to add in, and we will check in one last time with the attorney about how to implement it,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
as this is our
And
starting
make
point.
sure all the employees get a copy and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, great.
Okay. We will move on to old business. White Lake Woods Spill Prevention Plan. Richard, what's the latest?
White Lake Woods is the proposed gravel pit off Depot Road. Our particular item for the select board that we have jurisdiction over is the spill prevention plan. The planning board has overall approval or not of the entity itself. The Conservation Commission submitted to me comments that I then forwarded to the proponent. They made some revisions to the spill containment plan. I got some more comments from the Conservation Commission. I forwarded those to the proponent, and they looked at them and said, these look okay, but let's take some time and incorporate those in a new document that they won't have right away. So the proponent has asked us to put this off till our next meeting.
Yeah.
Which is April 8th.
And was there discussion of bond for the road?
That's mine.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with that, Richard Roberts and I met with Noah Coleman on the site on Depot Road where the entrance will be built.
Yep.
And we talked about a lot of things, including the bond that White Lakes Woods project is willing to put up to cover wear and tear damage on Depot Road. So the Richard and Noah had talked about a number based on what current condition of the road. They're doing video of sections of the road. They're going to look at cross sections of the road to kind of have a baseline for what the condition of the road is right now. They're going to Noah's going to do that with his team and share copies with us and with Richard, so that we all have the same starting place. He's putting up a $50,000 bond. It's renewable in 5-year cycles.
Did
And
Richard have plans for Depot Road in the near future?
Yeah, there's paving planned and the bridge planned for this year. There's a section being paved and they worked out all those
Okay,
So
logistics
are
too.
they, is there any restriction on like which end of Depot Road they're gonna be able to use? Do they have to go to 16? Do they have to go to 113?
Yeah, so that's actually, that was discussed in the planning board hearing, we did not talk about that. But in the planning board hearing, that was a question because where they're coming out is closer to the town end of Depot Road. And it's in a more, it's at the end of a kind of more developed area. And their plan is to head to Route 16, so they're heading east.
Yep.
And that, I was the one that raised it in the planning board meeting, and they said, yeah, the work is out on Route 16,
Yeah.
Well,
which was
let's
good to
have a-
hear.
Is there gonna be
Unless
a-
they get a new job that goes the other way.
Is there gonna be a restriction though of, cause I think on like Maple Road, I always thought that, and maybe it's just easier for them, but they always come, even if they're headed north, cause they haul a lot of that sand back to their yard in or Albany, Conway, I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever. They come out to the south side of Maple Road and then head north. And maybe it's easier
Yep.
for them, but I didn't know if that was like written up that they had to use one side of the road and not the other.
It was discussed, and scenarios were given, like what if you're doing a project,
In Marlboro.
you know,
Meredith.
at the lumberyard, whatever it is, or Meredith, and, nothing was, set in stone that they are only allowed to go one way, but, both of the Coleman brothers were there, Curtis and Noah, said repeatedly, like, our intention is this. We're not gonna swear that we're not gonna go this way, but they don't wanna be driving those trucks through a
No.
dedicated area either.
No, but it'd be nice if you could restrict them to one side of the road. I mean,
Yeah.
$50,000 bond isn't gonna replace all the Depot Road,
Yeah.
but they don't have to do that at all if they probably don't want to,
Right.
so.
Yeah, that's a good point, because really, if they go to Route 16,
And that's shorter too, I think,
it's
or is it pretty well centered on the
about
road?
equal, I think, but it's almost, mostly undeveloped.
Anyway,
It's a
I
straight
was
shot
curious,
too, as
yeah.
opposed to stops and starts, as well in a school zone and everything else.
Yeah,
Because even if you were working in Waltonboro, going 16 to 25 isn't like
it's not that much.
Yeah.
significant.
Well, so the planning board has already accepted the application with conditions that have already been presented, and that wasn't one of them, so I don't
Oh,
believe that
okay.
we've got any
All right.
latitude to bring
No, I was
that
just
up.
curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did get discussed a lot, and so they're aware, and, they also said that they're abiding, like, they'll make sure that their, operations, you know, I'm back to the road bond right now, that their operations, are curtailed when the road's posted, that they'll abide by road postings.
Really?
Yep,
Because
asked and answered a bunch of times.
Because on Maple Road, one of their famous, I mean, they haul out of there mainly in the springtime when they don't have a lot going on.
Yeah.
Maybe not this year, but in past years. And you can't, I mean, unless, I guess maybe if it's written up in the agreement initially, but you can't stop a business, I don't believe, on a posted road, and I could be wrong about that.
Well, I asked it a bunch of times
Yeah,
and
okay,
got him
no,
to
I-
say it on the record, so,
Okay,
yeah.
all good.
Yep.
Actually, Bruno brought that up at a meeting in the past about, he saw Coleman's trucks coming out of Maple Road when it was posted. And, we, you know, no different than like Ricker's Auto Salvage, you
Yeah.
have to let them go.
Well, they did say that they'd abide by it,
That's
so,
great.
Yeah.
They probably don't mess that road up if they have a bond on it.
right. Yep. Yeah, and the bond was not, I mean, it's not a requirement of the application.
Yeah.
It was a question asked and it was something that they offered to do, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Administrator report.
I thought we had something
Yeah,
else.
revision energy contract.
Oh,
It'll take
I'm
10
sorry.
10 seconds.
Totally missed it. It's revision energy
If you
contract.
recall, that's the community solar project that we approved a month or so ago, contingent upon school board approval. The Energy Committee has been before the school board. They take their time reviewing things. At the last school board meeting, they voted unanimously to send the contract to their attorneys to read it. So that's where it stands.
Okay.
Thank you for the update.
Next agenda.
Yeah. All right, I apologize about missing that.
Oh, no worries.
Administrator report.
The bank balance is $3,267,508. Our auditors arrived today, so
That's who was in here.
that
Yeah.
was in here. Yeah, so this room's gonna be busy for the week. Other than that, just dealing with a lot.
Yeah.
But it's good, actually. Yeah, so far so good. Any questions for me? No? Okay,
All right.
all's well.
Select board update.
Am I first?
You're first.
We
Yeah,
used
we're
to be
gonna-
the- Okay,
Yeah.
we'll keep going that way.
Tradition.
If you recall, I think it was our last meeting, we talked about pilots payment in lieu of taxes.
Yep.
And I said I'd do some research into how other entities calculate
Oh, right.
payments in lieu of taxes. The federal government, that's the first hit you get. The federal government is required to pay pilots for certain conserved land like national parks, national forests, et cetera, et cetera. So the town of Tamworth receives $806 a year in a pilot from the US government, and I didn't know that. And I also didn't know there's only 241 acres of the White Mountain National Forest in Tamworth. It pretty much stops at the town boundary. I thought there was much more of it, but there isn't.
Oh, Albany.
Yeah, most of Albany, I think, is in it. The way they calculate it is, it's a per acre cost. It's $3.35 or something per acre. Every year they set a new amount, but they also have a cap based on population. So it's kind of a confusing little formula, but it's very clear in the law. But it's really for vacant land. It's not for landed buildings. So it's not that useful, but at least they do something. If we wanted to use something like that for nonprofits that own land, you know, you could figure a per acre cost. But I think our interest generally has more been entities that have land and buildings that use community services like police and fire. Transfer station update, had a good call with Sanborn Head, the engineers designing the project. They've reached out to a couple of prefab middle building contractors to find out, can we afford a recycling building? That's after the bathroom and the compactor, kind of the next phase. And with the bids that we have over $500,000 left of the dollars that have been appropriated through town meeting. That's just local money. USDA is extra. So we can build some kind of building for that amount of money. I think the per square foot cost that Sanborn Head was looking at was $205 to $230 or something dollars per square foot for a prefab metal building, and I'm fairly sure that includes the concrete slab and electrical. So that was, if you do the math, you know, we can afford that. So they're
That's
going to
great news.
gather some more information and report back in a couple of weeks. Sanborn Head is always, the work they've done is for bigger towns that have more volume, so we've been convincing them that we are a smaller town and it needs to be a little different design. And if you recall, we did a visit, the Transfer Station Improvement Committee did a visit to Ashland, which was very similar to ours, and they use very low-tech means to do their stuff. So we've contacted Ashland again. I'm going to bring Sanborn Head to see the facility in Ashland. I've invited Brian as well, and anybody else here that wants to go. The meeting is going to be on April 18th. The date is set. So it's in the afternoon of April 18th. Anybody that wants to come from the select board is welcome to come. If we get a quorum, then we'll post it as a meeting. It's not a problem. So it's a Friday afternoon, so that, and actually Brian's already been there once, but so that Sanborn Head in particular can see how a low-tech recycling operation operates. Without concrete push walls and a big tractor scooping up large volumes of commodities and then dumping. You know, what they do is more by hand because that's what they have and that's what we have. So if anybody's interested, let me know, and we'll figure out a way to get everybody there. But at least Brian and I and maybe Willie and hopefully Steve, because Steve has not been there. Anybody else who wants to go, just let me know. The bathroom project will have a pre-construction meeting scheduled on April 2nd. I have Cobalt coming and also the septic installer will be there. I've marked the septic system approximately in the field. That was approved a couple of weeks ago, the septic system. And also, I'm in conversations with HEB and Alba Architects to provide assistance to the town to do inspections of the bathroom work as it's underway, because they designed it. And we told Sanborn Head, we really don't need you coming to do our inspections.
Right.
We'll contract directly with the architect and the engineers that did the concrete work. So we'll pay them on an hourly basis as we need them. And I'll be happy to have more of a presence from the select board as well, so Emery or Carl or all of us to be there for the pre-construction meeting and any inspections that happen, so that we provide proper.
When is there a date set for pre-construction meeting?
Yep, April 2nd at 4 p.m. And the last thing on the bathroom, we'll also need to be contracting probably with Hartley to hook the well up to a water line to the new bathroom, because that was not in the contract. So I've already talked to Cobalt about, get me a price to dig the trench and run the water line down to the well, and then Hartley can make the connections, because that was just not in the bathroom project. I'm not sure why we didn't include it, but we did.
And oh yeah, never mind.
Okay,
I thought that out in my own head. All good.
that's all I got.
That was plenty. Thank you. All that work. Let's see. Sewer Commission meeting was last night. They finally have an acceptable application in. Yeah,
Wow.
Should have a
And-
party
a certain,
to New Hampshire DES.
yeah. And, yeah, a certain member of DES who has caused some trouble is okay with it so far, so, yeah.
Wow.
Something might actually happen. But that's about it from that meeting. I did have an informal meeting of interested people regarding possibilities for Tamworth Village. Traffic flow, pedestrian safety. And it was well attended and enthusiastic.
Good.
So
Cool.
now we're contacting people who can help us get it there. It was interesting that Sienna Kaplan-Thompson was on the traffic committee and had some interaction with state DOT. And she seems to think they like making four-way stops.
Yeah,
They did change their policy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we could probably get this a
Yeah.
four-way stop
fixed,
Yeah.
yeah.
as a
So
memorial.
she's gonna look into that again with her contact there. And then, I don't know if you remember, but years ago, David Bowles, who's also a DOT
Yeah.
engineer, had developed a plan for a bike lane from the Four Corners to the Brett School. And it may have been even more than just a bike lane. It was a pretty good project. Anyway, it seemed like he got it very close to happening and then it didn't happen.
Right.
And so I have I've got a call into Jim Bowles, asking if he remembers that or if he can find a file somewhere where it's buried and see what work Dave did on that. And so we might.
So you guys need to call LRPC Glenn Trefethen.
Yeah, I think I have his contact.
He's the new transportation planner, and there is funding available through the Transportation Advisory Committee called TAP grants.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's alternative, so it's for walking pathways, so your sidewalks and bike paths.
Yeah.
And they grant every year. So, and there's a lot of money in the pool.
Yeah, so that's another one of my calls is to him,
Yep,
or an email.
great.
And that's all I have.
Cool. I've been working on some Landwood subdivision stuff that'll come up at the next meeting or so. The sick bank fit, and also just a reminder, we brought up at the last meeting that, Lakes Region Planning Commission annual meeting is in June. I'll remind you the specific date when we get closer, but, there are 3 awards that LRPC awards that night. And, the narrative is on the website. And it would be great, I'm gonna also bring the same message to the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board. It would be great if we had some nominations from Tamworth. We have people in town who put in amazing time and energy on behalf of all kinds of things for the town, so this is a nice way to recognize them. And, we had two winners, a couple of years
2
ago.
years ago,
Yeah, so it doesn't hurt to nominate people. And some of the awards can have more than one winner. So if you get a minute to look at the LRPC website, I think if you scroll down, you'll see where they are. And just rack your brain a little bit and think about either organizations, like formal organizations we have, kind of ad hoc groups that we have, or individuals that fit any of those criteria. And if you just email me your suggestions with a little blip about why you think we should nominate them, I can fill out the paperwork.
My update? My update is I have no update.
Okay.
Keep it simple. I don't have an update, but we will figure out, so you're gonna reach out in regard for the references
Yep.
for the bidder?
Already sent the email.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Keep me posted when they get back. And I'll also ask around a little bit. Maybe it's just for whatever reason, I'm just surprised that I haven't heard of the name, but it could be somebody kind of doing business under an LLC name that I just haven't,
Yeah.
heard of. So, anyway.
I want to say one thing before public input, which is, we've got a changing of the guard, and we should recognize Emery.
3 years of hard
He
dedicated
got
service.
thrown under the bus, being the only person on the board with a bunch of new people, and just said, okay, I'll be the chair, and has stuck it out for a long time, so good job, thank you.
Admirable job.
You know, back in the day, the chair used to get paid more than the rest of the people.
Really?
Is that
Yeah.
true?
That is true, because
Oh, God.
John asked me, he's like, does the chair still get paid more? And I'm like, no, you didn't pay me any
You didn't get
extra.
paid at all.
Why did it change?
What's that?
Why did it change?
I'm not sure if it
No.
changed when it went to 5 members or not. I don't know. I didn't.
Huh.
He. I don't know. I'd be kind of curious to
There's
know.
more cats to herd now.
Yeah, well, anyway, good job, thanks. And thanks, Carl, for stepping in.
Glad to do it.
Sorry if I start speaking up once in a while.
That's okay,
Have it.
It's understandable. Is there any public input at this point? Yes.
In regards to the sick bank, I sent over the county's policy.
Oh, great.
If you wanted to check it out. It's been in place for years now, I think since '22.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody online? Okay.
Becky says it did change when they went to 5 members because everyone was taking on jobs for the town.
Okay.
We can agree to disagree. All right.
There's no retroactive pay.
Yeah, that was City's in.
I'll move to the signature file. I move to approve the select board meeting minutes from March 18th, 2025.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Prince, yes.
Roberts, yes.
It passes. It's approved. I make a motion to approve the intent to excavate for map 201, lot 39, access Chinook Trail, map 218, lot 98, access White Mountain Highway, and map 214, lot 162, sublot 2, access road, Maple Road.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Prince, yes.
Roberts, yes.
It is approved. They are approved. I move to approve the abatement for map 415, lot 67, sublot 5, T5, and 1, what does that all mean?
Those are normally campers or
Oh.
tent sites.
Oh, okay. For $719.86.
Second.
You've got
Sorry, not in the.
You've got to fill in for Steve.
Oh, no.
Roll call vote.
Do you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
I move to approve the gravel tax levy for map 206 lot 40 and map 413 lot 14, the amount of $246.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Do you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
I move to approve the accounts payable for $410,296.38.
Second.
Some of the large payments are school payment for $276,000, and most of our outside agency petition requests around $60,000, NHRS payment of $17,000. Roll call vote.
Do you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
I move to approve payroll, the amount of $64,743.57.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Do you say yes?
Barry, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
Gabrielle said sorry that she did have public input. Will you allow it?
I will allow it. Gabrielle,
Can we hear you?
you're up.
Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
So I just wanted to comment on the great presentation that Rick gave on what's going on with all the buildings in town. And just to add that I've had a conversation with Mary Cronin at the library, who also reported to me the doubling of their energy costs since they installed the energy recovery ventilators. She also shared with me that they've been experiencing what looked to be some technical difficulties with at least one of those ventilators. They have 3 of them, which has also been recommended for the town offices. And she had to turn one of them off because it seemed to be malfunctioning. So it seems there may be a calibration issue with those. So as Rick suggested, he's going to be compiling information about those. I would recommend that you look at a year of performance measures for them, because this break-in period seems to have been a little bit tricky with the recovery ventilators that they installed in the library, or at least 6 months in order to make a decision for the town. I also said to Mary, which that the idea of the energy recovery ventilators is to save energy overall for the building envelope, and that you needed to look not only at your electric bills but also at your propane bills, because the idea of the energy recovery ventilators is that it saves you heat costs, and if you're heating your building with propane, that's where you would see your savings. So you would expect to see an increase in your electric bills, but also a reduction in your propane bills. And so Mary is going to be compiling information about both their propane bills and their electric bills in order to get a fuller picture of that. So I just wanted to say that, and I appreciate that you're paying attention to the impact of the installation, because obviously we don't want ice dams, but hopefully it has improved the energy efficiency of the building, and to look at that overall.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good point.
That was good stuff.
Thank you for giving me a chance to talk.
All right. I move that we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:32A, Session 1, and 91-A:32E, Session 2,
Second.
at, roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes?
We are now in non-public at
6:52.
6:52, thank you.
Who's taking
Who
the
gets
kids?
the kids?
So Sage is not going to.
Oh,
the
different
video.
times.
Oh,
We're going
yeah,
different
yeah.
times,
That makes sense.
So,
Oh my
I
god.
bet the kids for a week next week alone.
Oh, man.
Good luck, Emery.
Good luck, Emery. Swing by the bear camps,
All
there's
right.
some pre-cooked meals to
7:07.
feed them. Then you don't have to worry about it.
I move to come out of non-public at 7:07 PM.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
It's unanimous.
The minutes are not
Minutes are not
sealed.
sealed, and I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah, you need the mallet. What do you call that?
Oh, yeah, the gavels in
Yeah.
the door.